This is new. I do not go on live on YouTube. TikTok, I have 500,000 followers there, so I tend to have a lot more people on my lives, which allows me to have conversation with people through the comments. And I do not know how to set up multiple screens at once just yet. Goals for this year, I guess. So typically what I do is I don't like having topics. I like going off of what people are commenting and what people want to talk about, and going and having a little bit of back and forth to the best of our ability, as much as the chat limits that. So maybe as some people join and have some questions, comments, or concerns, we can address those. But until then, I'm sure I can share a few things that I have been working on within myself. For example, this month I have actually been reading a new book, and that book is the book of Proverbs in the Bible. And it's not the first time I've read it. In fact, I would say that I get distracted quite easily by one word made you run here. The title, I'm sure. Anyways, back to professional business. The book of Proverbs, I believe, has the highest concentration of wisdom of any book ever written. And I will stand by that. I will die on that hill. I truly believe that most self-help books today are just reinventions of the wheels that were built and written in the book of Proverbs 2,000 years ago. You can see the same types of wisdom from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, all the great philosophers, all the things that we are talking about today, they were talked about 2,000 years ago. Now we extrapolate on them. We bring in modern science to explain what stuff happens in our brains, the neuroscience behind meditation and thinking positive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But thinking positive was already written in the Bible. When it says to meditate on whatever is good, whatever is right, whatever is holy, whatever is righteous, right? Think about such things, right? All of these things have been said before, so there is nothing new under the sun. Now, an interesting passage that stood out to me, I was just reading it yesterday, in fact. Yes, I use a $50 bill as my bookmark. Let me find it here. I'll have to go back. Okay, so it's specifically, we're talking about wisdom. And wisdom saves you from two things. I think it's actually probably best to backtrack a little bit more when it talks about what wisdom is and where you find wisdom. Because often I think we're always looking for wisdom in hidden places. We think it's hiding. We think we have to go looking for it. It's in the corners. It's in the shadows. Nobody can find it. But what's the best place to hide something? Right under their nose, sometimes. Now, it says here that wisdom calls aloud. Out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. On top of the wall, she cries out. At the city's gate, she makes her speech. I posted a short on this recently as well. But I think it's really important that it says that wisdom calls aloud from the open, in the square, on the gates, on the walls. I think that represents our lives as well. So there's gates and walls. Those are the things that the walls keep things out of our lives, and the gates are what we allow in and out of our lives. And that's where we actually find wisdom speaking to us. Wisdom is found in its truest sense in what we are allowing in and out of our lives, what we consume on a daily basis. And if we are careful with what we allow into our gates and what we have our walls stop from allowing into our lives, that is where we will find such deep wisdom. And so that will tie into the next part, where it is talking about what wisdom can save us from. It says it saves us from two things in this chapter, in chapter 2. It says, wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse. It also says, wisdom will save you from adulterous women, from the wayward woman with her seductive words. Two things. Wicked men, wicked, perverse men, and adulterous, promiscuous, seductress women. Now, I think that was interesting to me just because I like to kind of play with the context of that. What does that mean in my life, and what does that mean as far as content goes? What does that mean as far as business goes? And the first thing that popped out to me was so much of the content today, so many of the creators today, so many of the big channels on YouTube today, what is it? Perverse men and adulterous women. That is what is entertaining so many of you, especially in the space that, some of my content exists in. It exists in the self-help space. It exists in, we do talk about red pill stuff. We do talk about the dynamics between men and women, etc. I'm very, very interested in social dynamics and relationship dynamics. So it is interesting if we really think, I'm sure we can all name a couple of channels that focus so much on wicked men and adulterous women. Now, that would mean those things are the opposite of wisdom. If wisdom saves you from those types of people and those types of environments, then those things must be the antithesis of wisdom. And so I just found that to be interesting, which is kind of like one of my feelings about a lot of the red pill types of creators and the red pill content and some of the manosphere. It's like it is so much based in fear. It is so much based in darkness. It is so much based in foolishness. There's not a lot of wisdom that you actually find from those types of people. And wisdom also, it further talks about how wisdom keeps you away from the ways of violent people, violent men. And so I think there's a distinction between a dangerous man and a violent man. In my opinion, I think that a fool seeks out conflict. A coward avoids conflict, but a fool seeks it out. And so the type of people that go around seeking conflict, those are fools. Those are people without wisdom. It doesn't mean that you should be incapable of defending yourself, of danger. But if you're going around looking for a fight, if you're going around threatening people, if you're going around threatening to box people, etc., these are not wise people. They're exposing themselves with their own words, with their own actions. These are people that are based in ego. These are people that are based in anger. These are people that are not based in anything that is actually positive and uplifting and will bring you to any place where you are going to be benefiting. So I don't know if you guys will agree with where I'm going with that, but I do find it really interesting that faith and biblical principles have become increasingly important to me as of late. And I find as I've aligned myself more with the principles that I find in those pages, that I find in following a more godly lifestyle, is my life gets better. The further I've moved away from such principles and such values, the worse my life has always become. It's always fallen more into addictive behaviors. It's fallen more into negative patterns and cycles. And I've always been feeling like I'm chasing something that I can never find, chasing this monster, running away from this monster that I can never beat, that I can never satisfy, right? So it's the whole metaphor, analogy of the good wolf and the bad wolf. What you feed will grow. And I think we can either feed the monsters that live within us, or we can feed the garden that lives within us. And if you feed the monsters grow. And if the monsters grow big enough, At some point, they will consume you. But if you feed a garden, the garden will grow. And if a garden grows, it will satisfy you. You will be able to consume from the garden, right? So, and that once again ties us back to wisdom. What is it that we are allowing into our lives, and what is it that we are choosing to consume? You are what you eat. What content do you choose to consume? What words do you choose to use about yourself? Words have power. Words have power. And I think we grossly underestimate that. How do you speak to yourself? It's very important. What labels do you use on yourself? I think that is a trap that a lot of people are falling into these days is, there's such a lack of identity, and there's such a lack of purpose, and there's such a lack of meaning that I think the words that people are speaking over themselves have increased in power over them. Because if you don't have a very good sense of identity, as soon as you start saying, I am this or I am that, that is what you become, because you aren't anything else. You're an empty vessel. And an empty vessel will seek to be filled by whatever is closest, right? If you are thirsty, you will drink from whatever cup is closest to you. Whatever's right there, doesn't matter how poison it could be poison, and you will drink from it. You'll drink from it. And I believe that is where a lot of people unfortunately are within their relationships with themselves. And so suddenly you start to find things that tell you who you are. Suddenly you become your star sign. Suddenly you become your race. Suddenly you become your religion. Suddenly you become these things that now your entire sense of identity, your entire sense of purpose, your entire sense of everything that you are is intrinsically tied to these things that should not be what your identity is tied to. Right? And anything that opposes you is a threat to your entire identity. And that's where I think people get so triggered, is because you don't have any sense of true identity, any sense of true meaning, any sense of depth beyond these surface things. So then anything that comes against that surface thing that you've tied your identity to, you feel like it's a threat to your very survival, your very being, the core of who you are. But your skin color is not who you are. Your label's not who you are. Your trauma is not even who you are. So many people just go around talking about how, oh, I'm just depressed, I'm just anxious, I'm just this, I'm just that. And yes, there is room for the true clinical diagnoses of stuff, and that's all very, very real. But I think a lot of people are lying to themselves. I think a lot of people are using these things as ways to cope with their lack of success, to self-sabotage themselves, to blame this label, to blame this thing. And that is the reason why they aren't doing what they need to be doing, why they don't have what they think that they should have, what they believe that they are entitled to. And that's a very dangerous game to play. A very dangerous game to play. I've been writing a little bit more lately as well. Writing and rambling. Working on my second book. It's interesting how much I've changed since my first book, which was very well received, and I'm very thankful for that. Although when I've read back on it, when I read back through it, I don't really recognize myself in here anymore. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not really familiar with that version of me. So many parts of myself, I had to, so many of those parts of myself have died to make space for new things that have grown, of course. And some things I've had to prune away because they wouldn't die on their own. They actually took I had to take action on some parts of myself that I needed to quite literally cut off. But it's interesting how the path can grow over. It's like you've been walking down this path your whole life, and it's what the trail is well worn, it's familiar. You can walk it like it's the back of your hand, and to choose a new path is really difficult because then you have to bushwhack. You have to get out your machete and blaze a new trail. And the first time that you go in a different direction, it's hard. It's a lot of work. You get lost. And it's not well worn once you've gone through it one time. You went this other direction that one time. You came to that fork in the road and you chose not to go down that usual path. Okay, you did it once, but then you come back to that same fork because you're met with the same problem at some point again. The same temptation, the same thorn in your side, the same thing that you can't seem to kick. And you're met with the same issue. You're met with that same crossroads. And what do you choose? Because now you've got that well-worn trail that you've taken so many times. And then you've got, this kind of mangled, it looks like somebody's been through there once. And now you have a choice. Do you choose to go down that new road again? To go through the jungle again? To go through the woods again? To face the unknown again? Or do you go back to that familiar path? But as you continue to choose this path, the new path, over time, that becomes the well-worn path. That becomes the well-worn path. And over time, what used to be the well-worn path starts to grow over. And you stop being able to even see it at some point. You see the crossroads, and you remember, yeah, I used to go in a different direction before, but I don't even remember what that's like. And this new direction has taken me to somewhere so much more beautiful. I remember where that path used to lead. It was easy to go down it, but it always led to hell. It always led to destruction. It always led to addiction. It always led to nothing good. But this new path, man, leads to an oasis. It leads to peace. It was hard to get there. It was a fight to get there. And sometimes the road to peace requires a bit of a fight. It usually does. A fight with yourself, typically. And it's interesting how that works. You even see it in something like the fitness industry. I worked for several years in the fitness industry, and it's like, it's hard to start. It's hard to take that new path of physical fitness. But once that has become your trail, once that has become your pattern, once that has become something that you are confident in doing, you can't go a different direction again. That becomes now when you stop going to the gym and you stop training your body, you feel terrible, right? Because this has become your new norm. Now when you stop doing that path, you know something's wrong. But that wasn't a part of your life until you took that more difficult road. The path of least resistance will always be the most traveled, but that's why it's a conscious choice to do things that are worthwhile, and anything worthwhile is usually more difficult than it is easy. I can't think of many things, if anything, in life that is worthwhile, that does not require sacrifice, that is just easy. I can't think of anything that is just easy, that is actually worthwhile and has a really good return on investment. Easy things don't have a good return on investment. They can give you instant gratification in the moment, but the return on investment down the road, it will leave you bankrupt every time. If you take the easy road, you will be bankrupt. If comfort is what you seek, weakness is what you will find. Strength is not built in the absence of resistance, right? So it's interesting to see how my mind has changed as I've taken some new paths and how my writing has evolved with that. It really seems like it's more, questioning. There's a lot more questioning. There's a lot more gray. It's a lot more unknown. It's like the exploration of the unknown. And that's how this new book is panning out to feel. The last one, it was like living in the past. It was still trying to break free from old patterns and addictions. And now this one, it's like you've broken free from the addictions, but now who are you? If you're not your brokenness, then who are you? If the bottle's not telling you who you are, who are you? If your success with women aren't telling you who you are, who are you? If the people you thought were your friends are not telling you who you are, who are you? Where are you getting your reflection from? You don't even recognize yourself. And it's a bittersweet place to be because there's so much freedom in having a blank canvas. You get to choose. At the end of the day, that's the cool thing about life is you can choose. You can choose to change. You can choose to be something different. So many of the things that we are living as are limits that we have either put on ourselves or that other people have put on us. And we just live as a victim to those things. And it's a tragedy. Maybe I'll share something from some of my new writing with you. Let's see. There's quite a bit here. I've got like 65 pages or so of just a whole lot of writing, and I'll be putting it together like some sort of jigsaw puzzle where I love poetry, but I also love life lessons, and so I've decided to mix the two together. That's the style that I enjoy writing in. Get into the art side of it, the metaphors, the feelings through poetry, and then the explanation of where that came from for me and what it means to me. Because I think it's cool to be able to tap into the emotional side of things, but often it leaves the logic out of it. It leaves the lesson out of it. And that's what I don't like about some poetry stuff. So I love self-help and I love poetry, but sometimes I think self-help doesn't have enough of have enough art to it, and I don't think that poetry has enough self-help to it. So I've decided to make a cocktail out of both disciplines. I'm still not sure what I want to share with you. This one's pretty melodramatic. It's not one of the poems, it's one of the journals behind the poem. I sit in silence more often than I'd like to admit. Seclusion has become my companion. Isolation, my best friend. We hold hands as I watch lives lived by others go by. Sometimes longing joins us, sometimes jealousy, sometimes disdain. I cope by convincing myself I have no time nor interest in such trivial things, that I am just too deep for such shallow water. I have more important matters to attend here alone in the dark. I should be further ahead by now. I should be a lot of things. Maybe I could believe that I am enough if anxiety would stop pulling the goalposts just beyond my reach. If depression would let go of my ankles. I want the world to believe I am running the race, that I am fighting the good fight, that I am not just here alone in the dark making friends with my demons. Guess it's pretty legitimate. Guess it makes sense, as one of my goals for this year is to, I'm a default introvert. But working on my ability to network and push myself outside of my comfort zone, even to come on live here, is quite vulnerable for me. I prefer to feel like I am curated, that I can use my writing. Writing is my strength. If I can write it out, I can make it sound good. I can practice it. I can get the words right. I can paint the picture of who I'd like you to see. So coming on live is so much more vulnerable, because now I can make mistakes. I can stumble over my words. I can ramble in directions that I wasn't really intending to, but my mind starts to take me to, and sometimes it doesn't quite sound as polished as I'd like, and I will now go and think about all of the things that I said over the last 30 minutes and beat myself up over certain things that I should have said it this way, or I should have went there, or I didn't sound clear enough, or it wasn't to the point enough. It wasn't strong enough. People aren't going to listen to you. They're just going to hear you for a little bit, and they're going to just be like, this guy's no idea what he's talking about. He talks in circles and he doesn't get to the point. He's not very interesting, etc., 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 right? But that's the game, isn't it? That's the game. And truly, I enjoy writing, and I enjoy sharing, and I enjoy talking about things that interest me. So I will continue to do that regardless of how that feels for everybody. And I can't please everybody, right? The courage to be misunderstood is important. And as I continue to practice being able to say the things that I believe in, I'll be able to say them more clearly and more effectively. I can already see how far I've come. If you go back and watch my first videos on YouTube to the way that I can speak now, it is like night and day. And I leave those on there to inspire you guys as well. To inspire you guys as well, to know that you can also change, and you can also grow, and you can also evolve, and you can also feel like you can't say things or speak eloquently or write well, or however else you want to communicate, whether it's over the internet, whether it's creating videos, or whether it's just in your relationships. If I can do it, you can do it. And with that, I told myself I'd just be on here for 30 minutes. Challenge accepted and challenge completed. It was far more uncomfortable to be on here on YouTube than it is on my TikTok, because there is very little interaction here, as I do not have much of a following just yet. But watch the throne. It won't be long. Until next time, stay blessed.